Welcome to another episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? If you're a regular, you know that we just passed our 3-year anniversary last month. And I'm just so excited. I can't believe that this is 3 whole years. And you can go back and see lots of old interviews if you're so interested. But I think you're going to be excited to meet our guest today. This is Lynn Bohart. Did I pronounce that correctly, Lynn?
Mhm.
Lynn Bohart. Well, hello and welcome.
Welcome to you too. I'm excited to be here,
Excellent.
especially
Um,
on your anniversary month.
I know it's like, woohoo,
Yeah, that's
what?
exciting.
Woohoo. And one of the things that I think you're going to love about meeting Lynn is how many books she has in her series. This is something I'm greatly envious of. I am going. I've been avoiding writing a series, so we're gonna see if Lynn can give me some advice. But let me just tell you a little bit about her. She is the author of a mystery novel series. She also writes short stories. She's written how-to marketing books. Plus, she has a business called Little Dog Communications, which she's going to tell us about, through which she offers her freelance writing skills as well. And like me, she had a long career in the nonprofit space, and I love it when, as you all know, you've heard me say this many times. I love it when my two worlds come together, my nonprofit world and my writing world, and this is another great example of that. And she tries to include important, and like me, she tries to include important societal issues in her stories. And then, if you could tell by Little Dogs Communications, she loves dogs and they play major roles in her mysteries. This sounds so cool, Lynn. Let us just dive right in. So many of the folks who watch this, we have lots of writers, but
Mhm.
and they're all readers, of course, but among those that are readers and not writers, a lot of them come from the nonprofit space because that's where they knew me,
Okay,
for like a zillion years. And so lots of my followers are major gift officers and
sure.
CEOs of not-for-profits and things like that. So tell us a little bit about your career in that space before we talk about writing.
So I spent 35 plus years in the nonprofit world. I started as a development officer, moved up to executive director, and I ran the hospital foundations for three
Mm.
community hospitals. I kept moving up the West Coast from California all the way up here to Washington, and then ended my career as the executive director of a community foundation. So I kind of ran the gamut. And now with my freelance writing company, I mostly write for nonprofits. And partly, as you know, because nonprofits typically don't have money to hire writers, professional writers,
Yeah.
and yet they can really benefit from the difference in quality and use of emotion and things like that. So I work a
Creativity.
lot. Yes, I work a lot with nonprofits, and I can charge less because technically I'm retired. So
Hmm.
my writing company is just an extra stream of income for me, and I can charge less for that, which helps them.
Yeah, it helps everyone. It's a win-win.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's
exactly.
very cool. I think there's something about fundraisers and nonprofit writers and fiction writers because I can't tell you how many I've met. It's just been, and some of them are doing really, really well out there with
Well,
lots and lots
when
of
you
books.
think about it, nonprofit, when you're writing for fundraising, you're telling stories. You have to
Yeah.
know how to tell stories. So I
It's
think
all
that's the
about
connection.
storytelling. Exactly right. So you said that you include issues, societal issues in your books. Tell us a little bit about that.
I have two series. I have a detective series which I don't use social issues in. My Old Mates of Mercer Island poster behind me. I just published the sixth book in that series. And when I wrote the first book, In Keeping with Murder, um, I had the concept. I wanted to be older women, senior sleuths, funny and snarky. And so I had the concept of the characters and kind of the feel of the book, but I didn't have a crime. And I
Mm,
had read a lot of cozy mysteries prior to that, and I was never enthralled with the crimes. They're very vanilla, if you know what I mean. They're because cozy mysteries by genre, it's no explicit sex, violence, or bad language. And so typically the mysteries, the crimes are just not sounds weird to say that they're not very exciting, but they're not. They're not complex. They're not, I don't know, they're just not very interesting to me. So I was looking for something that people could really grab onto more. And I happened to see a docu-series on sex trafficking. And I
mm,
hate sex trafficking. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. So I did a lot of research on it, and that's how I wove that crime into the first book. And at the end of the book, I decided, I did all this research. I hate sex trafficking. I grew up in the nonprofit world. I'm going to talk about this. So I had kind of almost like a little blog post at the end, encouraging people, saying, look, this is an international problem. If you'd like to help enslaved people, basically, that are all over the world, or being forced into sex unwillingly, here are some organizations, or look for organizations in
mm.
your local areas. And I had a number of people that left reviews and thanked me for that. So I ended up, now all but one of the books in the Old Maid series has focused on some kind of social issue: child abuse, mental health, bullying. And then my most recent book, No Place Like Home for a Murder, my lead character loves the Wizard of Oz. So in fact, that's the poster behind me. And if you can kind of see, it's got
Yeah.
Dorothy's ruby red slippers on.
Slippers right there on the path.
But it's framed around homelessness here in the Seattle area. And so again, I, like you mentioned earlier, I've been able to marry both worlds of mine, my love of writing and my love of mysteries and kind of puzzles, with bringing forth social issues. And so this time I've actually written a blog post that I just recently, posted on LinkedIn and Alignable and stuff. And I'm going to put it on my website about homelessness, and really encouraging people to get involved. So, you know, that's,
So, that is you've just given me such a good idea because everything but my murder mystery, but my other three books are all about kind of Me Too.
oh,
It's
yeah,
it's
yeah.
that's been the focus of three of my four novels. I decided I'd do a gritty murder mystery, but it's just about greed and you know.
Well, you know how women are portrayed um, is so important. And in fact, a lot of, because I have essentially five older women in this book. I get compliments from readers that say, "Thank you for showing older women that aren't dead yet, that are loving life. They're fearless. They're snarky. They're whatever." And they like that. And I could see you with the Me Too movement doing a lot. In fact,
Yeah.
I kind of set myself up for the next book in the series to use the crimes against Indigenous women, and the fact
Mm,
that, because
mm.
it's horrible, the number of Indigenous women that are murdered or disappear, and nothing's done about it. And so I thought, well, maybe that's going to be my next topic.
Next one. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
That's it's so wonderful to get immersed in a story and be taken away, but then to think about, oh, but these problems still exist, and these
Yeah.
problems exist in my world. I had a lovely review of my latest book, True Grace, where the reviewer wrote, even though this was 100 years ago, unfortunately, it's still so relevant,
Yeah. Yeah.
relevant
Yeah.
today. So that sounds wonderful. So you've given us hints, but maybe just tell us a little bit about the premise of your latest book. I love these older ladies.
Yeah.
You know. So tell us about it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure everybody wonders, how do they keep getting involved in murders? Because I've never known anybody in my whole life that was murdered, um, but the new one, Julia Applegate is the lead character, and one of her best friends, Rudy, calls her one night, screaming, saying, "So there's a dead woman on her floor," and it's a woman that she'd met at a homeless shelter, and she had hired her to do some yard work. And you might think, why in the world would somebody kill a homeless woman? And she, so that's what starts the book. And Julia and the friends get involved largely to exonerate Rudy, and but then to find the killer, find out what's happening is people are disappearing off the homeless people are disappearing off the streets of Seattle. And I came up with the concept for this again, watching a documentary on Netflix, um, about two guys who were illegally extracting tissue and bone from cadavers. They owned a funeral home. So I'm giving a little bit away here, but um, I framed it with the homeless population, and unfortunately treating these people like garbage, like they don't.
Throw away
They're
people.
exactly.
Yeah,
And
wow.
the girls get in big trouble. But and all of my books, I should mention, involve friendly ghosts. And the Old Maid series are humorous. They're funny. I kind of pattern them after Janet Ivanovich,
Yes.
her style, and so they're funny and but poignant at the same time.
Yeah. So the one that just came out, what's the title of the one that just came out?
No Place Like Home for a Murder.
That's such a great title. And that's the
Well,
one that has the,
my writing group didn't like it because they thought it was too long, and I said, but she's a fan of she quotes The Wizard of Oz. I mean, she's
yeah,
just got posters in her. I mean, she loves because the characters pattern a lot after me. It's my favorite movie of all time. So I just thought No Place Like Home for a
I
Murder.
love it. And then the ruby slippers on the
Yeah,
walkway. I mean,
yeah, yeah.
I, I love that. Love that. So I'm intrigued by the dogs. So have you read? I went to ask you. Have you read Lessons in Chemistry?
No.
Okay, you have to read Lessons in.
Okay.
First of all, it's a wonderful, amazing book. But the dog is a character.
Okay.
And her dog is 630, his name is. And 630 is a character that actually has chapter. He's
Oh,
actually,
interesting.
yes, it's
It's
really I
interesting.
just I thought of you when we were talking about it, preparing for this. So anyway, tell us about dogs and the role they play.
Well, I'm devoted to dogs. I've had dogs in my life, my whole life, and first Cocker Spaniels, and now I've got two miniature long-haired Dachshunds. And when I wrote my very first book, Grave Doubts, which is my only standalone, I included a German Shepherd, and and I wanted to make the German Shepherd a hero in the book, which she is. Her name is Soldier. She was an abandoned dog, and so it ends up getting adopted by this woman and saving her life. And so right then and there, I said I'm going to have a dog in every one of my books.
Mm.
So then, when I wrote my Detective Giorgio Salvatore books, it's a Basset Hound named Grosvenor. And then in the Old Maids books, it's two miniature dachshunds, which are based on my dachshunds. And they have saved Julia a couple times. One of them, his name is Mickey, and it's based on my dog who's gone now, named Mango. When he would get excited, he would just spin on the floor like a top. So in the book, while Minnie, the one dog, is trying to save Julia by attacking the bad guy, Mickey's on the floor spinning in a circle. And in her mind, Julia's thinking, good dog, Mickey. Keep spinning. But I try, so the dogs are very realistic, and yet very endearing. And I have a talking parrot in the Old Maids of Mercer Island. His name is Ahab, and he quotes old movies. And the first one, so when I put him in the first book, the second book he gets stolen. And I remember
Mm.
my writer's critique group saying, "Don't you dare kill him,"
Mm.
because he was popular enough that he was like, "Don't you get rid of him." So of course I had to bring him back.
I love that. So how many books have you published together,
Total
altogether?
10 novels with my most recent book, 10 novels, two short story books, and then two nonfiction books. I have to mention this to you. So one book is the marketing. It's for
Hmm.
self-published authors, and I kept getting asked by other writers, how do I publish my book? Because I'm self-published, and I'm not John Grisham or Stephen King, right? But I've made enough money to help put my daughter through college, and so I wrote that book to say, if you don't really want to be a master marketing expert and do all that work, here's how I do it. But my other nonfiction book I wrote for a nonprofit. I was hired by Vision House, which is a residential housing program up here in Seattle for homeless people, transitional housing program. And they hired me to write a book about their founders and chronicling the story of how their wonderful organization and how they came into being. So that was my 10th book or 12th, 14th book. God, how many books I have? Yeah, I guess it's 14. Goodness.
I am so impressed. I really am. It's just, oh, this
Well, my
is
daughter keeps
wonderful.
asking me, Mom, when are you going to retire? I thought you were going to retire, but
Yeah. This
I'm
is
doing
my
what I love.
retirement.
Yeah,
This is what my retirement looks like.
yeah, 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 me too.
Uh, and so you said that in your freelance business, your Little Dog Communications, you write for not-for-profits. Just because we have lots of not-for-profit folks that watch this show, just what kinds of things you do? Stewardship letters, grants, what kind of things?
Yeah. Well, I try not to do grants because I hate writing grants, but I write a lot of case statements, cases for
Mm,
financial support, because I do the research and then I craft the message. I do a lot of fundraising appeals, and thank you. I have a contract with somebody right now doing fundraising appeals and thank you letters. So, but then I do speeches for people and
mm.
does case studies and things like that too for-profit businesses.
It's very
Yeah.
cool. Very, very cool.
So I have a website. They can just go to www.littledogcommu and it's LIL little
Cool.
dogcommunications.com. Yeah. LIL dog communications.
Excellent. And I'm going to ask you in a minute how they can find your books and all of that.
Okay.
Um, but tell me, because this is what are you reading? What are you writing?
Right.
So tell us about, was there, especially with your mystery, your murder mysteries, was there a writer that had a big influence on you or?
Stephen King, when I was young,
Mm,
I read Salem's Lot and was so impressed with how he described things. I could almost smell the coffin,
mm, mm,
that stayed with me. So I'd say he was influential. My favorite authors right now are Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child, who write the Age of Pendergast novels. A couple of them have been made into movies, and they're a combination of horror and mystery.
mm.
And again, just great descriptions. I mean, they just flesh things out in a way you can picture everything. And the character of Agent Pendergast is, I mean, they have a huge following. He's just an amazing character that must have come out of one of their nightmarish dreams, but because he's an FBI agent, but he's just really interesting. So now I'm going to be taking a break since I just published this last novel, and I'm going to try my hand at horror. Believe it or not, it's something I've always wanted to do.
I
So
love changing up genres. I love
yeah.
that. Every book I have just I've written in three different genres because it's
Mhm.
fun. And now I'm trying something totally new for the one I'm working on now. So I get bored just doing the
I
same.
do too, and I love my series, but
Yeah,
this is something I've always. Hopefully, next time we talk, I will have published
your first
my
horror
horror.
book. Sounds good.
I want to scare the pants off people. So it's my
There
goal.
is there is an ambition. And is there Is there a book you've not mentioned yet that you've recently read that you could recommend to our audience?
I just started yours, which
Oh,
which I'm
thank
just only
you.
about 3 chapters in, but so far I love it because you have a really interesting style of writing, very edgy and modern, contemporary, which I don't do, and which I just admire you for being able to do that
Thank
in
you.
a really credible way. Uh, but I also like I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts,
Mm-hmm.
and I listened to something called Buried Bones, which is with a journalist, a female journalist, and then a retired criminologist. I can't say that, named Paul Holes. And he wrote a book called Unmasked. And he was in the California area, Sacramento area, and he helped to bring uh, the Golden State Killer to justice,
Mm.
who had been um, on. I mean, he had just been ignored and on the run. I mean, they just for decades. He just terrorized people. So this book is about Paul Hole's career and that killer. Very interesting, and I learn a lot by from both the
Yes.
podcast and since I write mysteries from this book because he's the real deal. So it's called
Yeah, isn't that
Unmasked. It's a
wonderful?
good book.
How, I mean, I read for pleasure, of course, but I read to learn.
Yeah.
You just keep always working on your craft, and you read someone's book and you think, oh, yeah, I could do that. I could try
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's excellent. Thank you. So tell us how we can find you. Where can and tell us again with Little Dog Communications is, and then tell us where we can find
Okay.
your books and find out about you.
Well, if you just put my name in, if you Google me, Lynn Bohart, I kind of pop up everywhere, partly because of my books, but partly because of my career. When I was an executive director, and if I make a speech somewhere or whatever, then somebody'd write an article. But so I have an author website, and it's just lynnbohart-author.com. And
Hmm.
then the freelance, like I said, is littledogcommunications.com. And then I'm on Facebook. I have an author site on Facebook, which is pretty easy to find. I used to do Instagram, and I just got so many crazy people and
I
bots
know
that
all
I'm
these
not doing that anymore.
weirdos, right?
Yeah,
Sending me
yeah,
pictures of their men with their
yes.
shirts off
Oh
and
yeah. Oh God, it's just yeah. I mean, it just got really frustrating. So, yeah. So if you're interested in freelance writing, reach out to me. And or if you're interested, all my books are on Amazon. And so yeah, I'd love to chat. And if you just want to ask questions, let me know. And I teach through Green River Community College. I teach online classes through Green
oh,
River. Um, in crafting the story. So they're
oh,
writing
that's cool.
classes. Yeah, and
Writing classes.
actually, yeah, and I give presentations sometimes. I did one for women in publishing on creating characters readers can't quit. So I do that occasionally too. So I'm kind of
Oh,
all over
fun.
the
Sounds
place.
like you're living your best life. Sounds
Yeah,
pretty
I
darn
sometimes say
good.
I wish I could have quit, 15, 20 years ago and done this full time. But it
Yeah.
is what it is, and I'm happy now. So
You're in a great place. And I want to thank all of you for seeing and watching us and finding out about Lynn. I hope that you will buy her book, that you will read it. We so appreciate it when you write reviews. So we do ask you that if you love it, then please write a review. Uh, don't write mean reviews. Don't write. But you'll love it. You will love it. And so I wish you all well until next week, the next episode of What Are You Reading? What Are You Writing? Have a great week.